What's up guys, Houndish here, and today TWAB is out, and it's very short. Of course it's a tradition to cover the TWAB, so we're diving in anyway, but Bungie give us a quick patch note preview for an update that we'll see next week. And they mainly tell us about deep sight weapons for this season. There are a couple of changes there. They also briefly touch on the return of Grandmaster Nightfalls, new Twitch Prime loot, and some dev insights into narrative development. So as always guys, let's dive in and talk about it. And starting out, they say for this week's shenanigans we have just a few things to cover, including a little patch notes preview. And they say this is a tiny sneak peek of what we have lined up for the update next week. And so initially, to alleviate some of the pressure in acquiring Season of Plunder weapon patterns, the double perk Weapon Spoils Crew upgrade will now give you a deep sight modded weapon the first time you focus a weapon each week. And on top of that, the deep sight modded weapon from the Hidden Compartment Crew upgrade will now appropriately refresh at the weekly reset, and that's why some players haven't been getting them dropped. And so just a couple of changes right there to red border weapons this season. They have been a bit of a pain point for some. It's good to have that guaranteed source as well. Otherwise though, we don't know what else is going to be in the update next week. Of course, we're still waiting on disabled exotics and various other bugs in the game. So hopefully there'll be a few other patch notes, and as always, I'll keep you posted. Next though, they say Ambition and Birthright enter the chat, and Grandmaster Nightfalls are returning next week. So this will be the next shot to finish up the Conqueror title, or of course Gilded. As I say, speaking of loot, we wanted to give you a preview of Adept weapons you can earn this season, and the new ones added into the rotation include the Adept Malicious Birthright and Mindbender's Ambition. Couple of pretty fun weapons for this season right there. But otherwise, that's all they have to say on the return of GMs. So let us know if you're planning to dive into those next week down in the comment section. For the update next week, they point out that will be October 4th, and the game will be brought offline at 9:45 AM Pacific. So that's 15 minutes before weekly reset time. And then hotfix will roll out at the reset time, and the game will come back online. They also point out to access the Season of Plunder Season Pass, incorrect wording is displayed on the Season 18 pass, and they say players must do the following to acquire plundered umbral energy: complete the Salvage and Salvation mission in Helm, speak to the spider in the Elixni Quarter, then complete the Ahoy and Away quest, visit the star chart in the Helm, acquire the Sails of the Ship Stealer and Captain's Atlas quests, and then claim plundered umbral energy in this Season Pass. So be sure to bear those in mind if you happen to be starting out with this season's content. A final couple of mentions right here, but for players who have Amazon Prime and Prime Gaming linked to their Bungie account, there is a new Prime Gaming bundle for the month. And this is the one that runs up until the end of October, and it includes the Rock Out Exotic emote, as well as the Traitor Primus Exotic Ghost Shell, the Dinas Emery's Exotic Sparrow, and a new legendary ship right there. So I'll link the Prime Gaming page down below if you need to claim that. And another mention right here, but Bungie posted an interesting new blog post yesterday. And it mainly focuses on development for Destiny 2 and long-term narrative evolution and how Bungie kind of factor in the lore, planting threads for the future, and then revisiting that stuff when producing new content. It is quite an in-depth post, so definitely worth checking out in full, but they touch on Season of the Haunted and how moving into Season of Plunder was a nice palate cleanser for the game, moving away from the kind of intense trauma and the very dark Season of Haunted story to a slightly more light-hearted pirate chase. And they point out that Auntie Eris helps us deal with our problems, while Drifter wants to set the world on fire and maybe grab an adventure or two on the way. They say once we get an idea that has traction and leadership is on board, the next part is making sure that the game hasn't moved past the moment you're trying to create when telling an evolving story. There are storyline threads that have ended, and revisiting moments like that can feel forced or like they've come too late. And the job as narrative team is to think about how to conceptualize this growing history, how to make it cool and relevant to the current story. And it should feel like an additional adventure and not a distraction. And the team add that connections made to the game's histories may not always be obvious, but looking at things like the connection between the Glykon and the Leviathan, of course there is an obvious connection. But they say, did you know that Glykon is actually a Red Legion ship that was stolen from a shipyard on Nessus? And they point out that that's in the lore. And they even have a historian on the team who specializes in historical references to different characters and various lore in the game, basically there to help direct what can be revisited and any threads that can be used as inspiration. They also say, did you know that the visual in the Lightfall trailer showing Callus's majestic Yokeless wrinkles was pulled from a description in the lore attached to the Presage mission, and they're referencing the first chapter of the Captain's Log lore book. And sometimes there are little clues and details in the lore that later become inspiration for content. And they finish by saying this is just one of the many ways that the cutting room floor has inspired some of the strongest narratives, but you never know what else has been inspired by something like a terrifying 90s horror flick, or a meme, or just an oddball idea that comes out of nowhere. The challenge is owning that and crafting it in a way that players can feel and cherish. Each puzzle piece creates a blueprint for the future of what the game can be, and even shifts how we see past experiences. And sometimes when you have a good team, those seemingly off-the-wall ideas can transform into something truly great. And they finally say you have no idea what's coming, but keep this little inside look in mind as we race towards Lightfall and beyond. So a few interesting insights there, and once again certainly worth taking a read if you're interested in narrative and development for the game. That is linked below, guys, but for today that's everything we have to round up in the video. So I hope you've enjoyed it as always, and if you have, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Plus be sure to get subscribed if you're new around here, and I'll keep you up to date with more Destiny content. But otherwise for today, thank you as always for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys very soon.